We were on a Saigon city bus. Unlike our comfortable first experience, this 1 hour ride was hot, sweaty, and pukey, which was not the ideal precursor for what followed.
Another bus.
Although it was daytime, the second bus ride was on a sleeper-style bus, this time with single-person bunks. They were longer, giving John enough room to actually stretch out flat. Pre-barfy from the first bus, we loaded up on ginger and anti-nausea meds, which knocked John out cold. He slept most of the 5.5 hours, while Heike listened to an audiobook and watched Vietnam roll by. Chow Doc would be our home for just 13 hours. The CK Hotel was kitty corner from a loud, stinky market. We were a little worried, but it actually shut down very early and was silent by 8 p.m.
Even the smell disappeared.
We had dinner at Bo Da Tam, overlooking a tributary of the Mekong River. Dozens of cream-colored geckos scaled the walls and ceiling. We shared pan-fried lemongrass chili tofu, spicy ginger deep-fried tofu, stir-fried noodles, pineapple fried rice with raisins and cashews, and sautéed mushrooms with kaffir, galangal, and garlic. Every dish was delicious, but all those fried goodies would take their toll. Back in our room, Heike was not feeling well. Unfortunately, her insides did not appreciate the feast nearly as much as her taste buds.
With all the various street foods and drinks, I was probably due for some tummy trouble.
By morning, Heike was mostly better, which was a good thing because we were about to embark on a boat ride down the Mekong River. The scenery of the river trip was fascinating, with colorful floating homes, stilt homes, locals fishing and working on traditional boats, and dredgers pulling silt out from the water to ship on barges. Fascinating in a different way was a French passenger who threw a hissy fit because we asked him not to smoke 1 foot from our faces.
Way to feed into the stereotypes, Pierre.
The first section of our journey was 1 hour. Then we stopped and spent an hour in Vietnam exit customs. We were back on board just 5 to 10 minutes before disembarking again for another hour, this time for Cambodian customs. We were in a new country. As much as we enjoyed our month in Vietnam, it was perpetually loud and chaotic. We hoped Cambodia would be just as beautiful and delicious, but maybe slightly gentler on the senses. The remainder of the boat trip was 3 hours down a very broad stretch of river on rather uncomfortable seats. That section had few scenery changes and got quite monotonous.
And hot.
If it was possible to rearrange the distance between cities or significantly speed up the boat, we'd recommend shaving at least a couple hours off that excursion. Eventually, the Phnom Penh skyline came into view. Unlike the Vietnamese cities we had visited, where every structure was at least 3 or 4 stories tall, every building here was either a new skyscraper or an older 1 or 2 story structure.
Don't forget about all the golden shrines and statues.
As we walked to our hotel, we noted some positive differences to Phnom Penh from Vietnam that matched our hopes. Way less garbage, way fewer scooters, way more driver courtesy, and way less honking. The simple reprieve from constant horn blaring was such a relief to the senses. We settled into our 1-bedroom apartment at the Amata residence. Our suite was larger than several apartments we've lived in.
The shower alone was bigger than a couple of them.
We headed out to explore our neighborhood, which was a few kilometers from the city center. Visiting the grocery store gave us a chance to start figuring out yet another new currency, the Cambodian riel.
About $2,800 to $1 Canadian,
while having US dollars thrown into the mix as well, a practice the Cambodian government is trying to unsuccessfully phase out. That night we cooked dinner.
Insert air quotes here.
Instant noodles, but jazzed up with all the herbs, chilies, and lime, just like at the restaurants. Plus, John added minced pork and Heike added tofu. It was excellently elevated dorm room fare.
And for the first time in weeks, no one was standing off to the side watching us eat.
The next morning we did laundry, had a fruit-filled breakfast, and relaxed while the sun baked the city. Finally, around 3 p.m., after the direct heat began to wane, we headed out. The Hotel Tuk Tuk took us part of the way, which was a fun experience.
Riding a scooter in Vietnam seemed sketchy. This felt more secure.
We grabbed some walking beverages at a local mall before strolling into the heart of the city for a whirlwind flyby of the major sites. We started with the temple and pagoda at Wat Phnom Duan Pen, an appropriate beginning considering the location is the site of the legend of Pen and the birthplace of the city. Then we saw the giant clock of Phnom Penh, the Preach Tre Inkavaraman Museum, and Phnom Penh Night Market, even though it was still daylight. We spent time at Saravon Teko Pagoda, appreciating the beautiful structures.
And the roaming chickens.
We passed the Deep Red National Museum of Cambodia and the Royal Palace grounds, home to the king, his son, the next king, and his grandson, the prime minister of this democracy.
Again, insert air quotes here.
We saw Bottom Fountain and the Cambodia-Vietnam Friendship Monument. Vietnam played an important role in ending the Khmer Rouge Cambodian genocide of the 1970s. As it got dark, we passed Dragon's Fountain and Independence Monument, then strolled Basak Street, which is a party street, but it was still early and not yet busy, let alone crazy. We ended up at Aeon Mall, where we snacked on tiny pineapples and jackfruit, which is delicious and one of John's new favorite fruits. To see more of the city, we walked back via a different route. It was not the best path, as these areas were dirtier and less savory. Not in a dangerous or unsafe way, just more in a "this is unpleasant, let's just take a tuk-tuk back next time" way. The next day we enjoyed some rooftop pool time, followed by dinner across the street at Hawk Master Chef Khmer restaurant, named because the owner Hawk made an appearance on Master Chef, and Khmer is the language and ethnic group of 95% of the Cambodian people. With a little difficulty, we asked the woman running things, who spoke zero English, for advice on what to eat. Per her recommendation, we got a veggie stir-fry with a side of rice, after she told us they don't sell rice, because sometimes translation apps are the worst.
Who knows what Google Translate told her we wanted?
We also got deep-fried corn, because almost every other diner was having it too. Pad Ka Prao, savory spicy beef and green beans with rice, veggies, and an egg. And lemongrass chicken elbows, literally the wing joints without the wings, which is technically also the wrist.
Why not elbows and wrists? Everybody's already having the fingers.
The restaurant was the front of a family home. From our vantage, we could see the men sitting around watching TV in the living room area, while beyond that, the women prepared the food in the kitchen at the end of a long hallway. The family's kids were running around and playing amongst the diners. At one point, a small boy ran through the restaurant dining area completely naked, and wet and shiny like he was greased up in baby oil.
Dinner and a show.
It's a different world over here sometimes. As we walked around that night, we saw frogs on the ground, dozens of regular-sized geckos sprinting around on the walls, and a giant spotted tokay gecko sticking his head out of a space between the walls.
Like a foot-long speckled salami with legs.
Then he hid while we got more pictures. Before bed, we snacked on more jackfruit and tried some snake fruit, another new to us tasty treat. On the way to the market the next day, John picked up a couple of street baguettes, like banh mi but with meatballs and spicy sauce. Like any good meatball sub, they were messy and delicious. And unlike most meatball subs, it was just $2 for the pair. That evening on the hotel roof, we enjoyed a final view of the lights of the Phnom Penh skyline from our Penice pool.